Well, this is interesting. SRX, the game, as one of their support classes, has unlicensed Pro 2 short course off road trucks under the generic class name of Stadium Trucks. Looks to be about 700 horsepower, 750 horsepower put to the rear tires. The body style is based off a late 90s Chevrolet 1500. And the track list features the game's most kind of out there fantasy courses. There's a handful of short course off road style tracks with both left and right turns, as well as a few jumps, as well as a bunch of really outlandish ovals that take place in like football stadiums. It's just the entire track list for these cars is just like all of the crazy shit the game has to offer. So we're going to go to Shadeville. I grabbed a setup from Red 4424 off YouTube because I admittedly don't really know how to set these trucks up all that well. It runs okay out of the box. I'm going to show a lap here in practice, hitting the par time. Compared to the other cars I've driven so far, like the SRX Challenger, the Asphalt late model, the Dirt late model, these trucks, in my opinion, leave a lot to be desired. And it's primarily down to what seems to be a hidden countersteer assist. I have to be really gentle on my inputs with this truck, because if I get the truck too sideways and then try and countersteer out of a slide, it seems like the game applies a hidden countersteer assist that is meant only for pads, but for whatever reason also activates when you drive the game with the steering wheel. And if you're not ready for it, or your wheel inputs are too aggressive because you're trying to catch a pretty nasty slide, the front will just hook like crazy, and it feels like something just broke in the truck, or like the hand of God has just like taken the front tires and shoots you into the wall. So driving this truck is really not as enjoyable as you'd think, because you have to be kind of self-conscious about how much wheel you're putting into in the middle of a slide. Because if you overdo it again, the hidden counter steer assist takes over and it just feels completely fucking bizarre. So we're going to skip ahead to qualifying, show my outlap here. Again, if you can keep your wheel inputs relaxed, it's not the worst handling thing in the world. There's a bit of throttle control needed, and it just feels like a very big, lazy simcade game. It feels a lot to me like Dirt 3 or Dirt 2, where the surface is very abrasive but very smooth at the same time, and you can get just these really big controlled slides going, which looks really cool, and it's really satisfying to pull off. The one thing I'm not quite sure of, though, is how the AI is going to hold up, because while Monster Games have definitely specialized in oval racing sims over the years, this is really out of their comfort zone and not something they have a whole lot of experience making games on. So I'm curious to see what this looks like in a pack. And I won't show a full race because, I mean, again, I don't want to waste a whole bunch of your time, so I'll just show my qualifying attempt here, and then we'll skip to a more interesting part of the race with the lap count winding down. First lap's pretty good, and I'm on pace with the AI at max strength, which is 105%. I put down a 31.9, and the pole time seems to be a 31.5, or a very high 31.5. A bit more ambitious on lap 2 again. I have to really be conscious about my wheel inputs. I can't just throw it into corners and turn the wheel upside down and power out of a slide, because the truck will literally hook into the wall, which is just bizarre, and I really don't understand how that made it into the game. So I'm going to roll off the grid 4th, which is more or less where I qualify on the Asphalt series. So the AI at least is kind of on pace with what I'm able to do. And we're going to skip ahead to about 10 laps to go here after yellow flag period. I'm going to restart 4th. I'm actually having a lot of trouble gaining ground on the AI, and you're gonna see why here in a bit. Unlike the oval stuff in this game, which is really well balanced with the player, the AI follow all the same lines as the player. What you're going to see out my windshield here is quite the opposite. The AI don't get into big slides. You can actually see them shift around a fair bit as the game kind of like warps them onto the preferred line if they're not following it precisely. It seems like the AI have different acceleration capabilities compared to me. It seems like they can really woe things up for a corner and power out of it, whereas for me it's more advantageous to really send the truck into a giant slide. So I'm always having to be conscious about where the AI is in relation to my line, because we're just not running the same lines at all. Also, some weird suspension behavior you see there. The suspension rebounds later than it's supposed to, so all the trucks have this weird pogo effect from the back end as they're cresting the hill, which is just really bizarre. But it's a somewhat compelling race, all things considered. I am running more or less the same lap times as the AI, They're really not pulling away from me, and I'm not really gaining any ground on them. But as you can see, in that situation, I got to the trucks inside, and some sort of like weird AI rubber banding kicked in, and he gained a ton of lateral grip and just pulled away from me by 2 car lengths, which stuff like that in racing sims pisses me off. Getting passed on the inside here. Again, it seems like they have a lot more lateral grip in the corners than I do, which makes this racing not so great. But then for other corners like that gentle bend going into this jump here, it seems like I was really catching up with the AI. So it's just, I feel like I'm having to dodge the AI and drive around them as opposed to just race them, which is really unfortunate. Here's that weird pogo effect again. That is bizarre. And you're seeing I'm not getting a good enough bite off the corner at all, but it's almost like the AI have traction control. But yet, simple corners like that, I'm able to get right alongside them, door a guy, and seemingly take the spot away from him. So that'll put me 3rd out of 25 cars. Seems like every class in this game has the same field size. So we're at least on pace for a podium finish here, chasing down 2nd place. I really don't think I'm going to catch 1st place. And like you can tell just by the pitch and the attitude of the truck that I am pushing quite hard. I'm not sandbagging to make it an interesting race. Like, this is me driving balls out in this game. And the AI is just doing shit that I'm not really capable of. Got a nice run on 2nd here. Again, I've talked about in other videos, in some racing sims, you end up having to drive races where you capitalize on the AI just not being very good at certain parts of the track. And this is rearing its ugly head here. I'm also not racing in cockpit view like I should be, because the cockpit view in this game is positioned way too high up in the cab. And it feels like the top of your helmet is scraping the roof of the truck, and it looks completely ridiculous. So I found hood cam to be a lot more appropriate. Good run on 2nd place here, try and cross him over. Nope, just jets away. I have no idea why that happened. And again, this is something you quite common see in a lot of racing sims. It's just, it sucks when it's in a game that you're actually kind of starting to enjoy. And so many other areas of the game, in particular the AI on other classes, is really good. This definitely needs some work. Obviously, when you buy a game like SRX, these trucks aren't meant to be the main draw of the game, but you'd like a bit of uniform polish across like every class that's featured, right? Go for the crossover here, and again, the discrepancy in my line between what the AI were running through there, I just ended up driving into the back of him. I did like how the moment I touched his truck, him getting spun around so quickly like that looked really realistic. There was a nice transfer of momentum and inertia from my truck to his. But it's just a shame that like the lines are just so different that you can't really have close door-to-door racing. It's always being paranoid of where the AI is and having to drive around him. But regardless, the eyes in the sky believed that that wasn't malicious, which it really wasn't. So they've put me 2nd on the grid, but already I've gotten past just because I don't have the grip the AI does in that hairpin. So I've fallen back to 3rd quite quickly. Again, discrepancy in AI line, ended up getting right into the back of 2nd place, and he just shoots away. I'm probably not going to get there. I'm falling back to 4th now. Back up to 3rd. 1 to go. Driving my ass off here, banging off the chip in 3rd gear. I just can't gain the ground that I need to. That was a lot better of a corner, but again, it's almost like they have traction control and just shoot away from me. And I'm just not sure what I'm supposed to do. And even the outside line with all the banking doesn't seem to work, so I'm going to come home 3rd place. A less than satisfying race. I don't recommend trying these trucks in the game. Both the counter steer assist you can't turn off, as well as the AI discrepancies, it's just not the greatest experience. But thankfully the rest of the game seems to be pretty good.